I think they almost tied for what's the best, the adoption, training of veterinary technicians. A lot of us had, mostly gals that were working in our clinics with us, that we tried to teach to do some of the lab work and stuff. But to have somebody who is professionally trained, and that made veterinary practice much easier, much more enjoyable, as did the emergency clinic. And I was still in Wilmer at the time that your Uncle Gene, and I think your dad was involved some, Bill Funk was involved, some was before I went to work for him, and a bunch of other guys. Terry Rapaz brought the idea back from California when he had been out there, and actually got it started in Ed Klausman's clinic to start with, and then they decided it needed to be an independent. That made practicing
bearable.
Yeah, the three of us partners.
From a spouse's perspective, I mean, that must have been huge to think that your husband did not have to go down to the clinic for emergencies at night and not knowing what would happen.
Or that they bring it to the house.
Or they bring him home to the house because they couldn't leave him at the clinic overnight.
Yeah, there were a lot of times that I would bring somebody home. I can think of
Yeah, but the
of
lady
a dachshund that belonged to the Anderson, Ron and Barb Anderson, got into some strychnine, and I would bring it home at night and keep giving it pentobarbital to control the seizures. When it would start to wake up and start to seizure, I'd sleep next to it on the sofa.
I thought one thing I wanted to make sure that was mentioned was starting this emergency clinic. It really wasn't started at all with the purpose of it being a successful business. In fact, I think the people that were members had to agree that it probably wasn't going to make money, and that you had to be willing to put money in to keep it afloat. And everybody was totally in agreement with that.
Yeah.
That we were willing to put money in if it meant we didn't have to see emergencies.
If I remember the story correctly, I can maybe find that little booklet you referred to, but there were eventually 50 of veterinarians, each put in $1,000, realizing they may have to put in another 100, 200, who knows how much each month to keep it operating. But they thought, because of the better care that these sick animals would get, because there was a veterinarian that was there with technicians to help them, that was number one. And number two, they didn't have to interrupt their sleep or their dinner or theater or whatever they were at, kids play or whatever, to do it. And it's the best investment I ever made was to buy a share in AEVS.
Yeah.